out there. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. As Zane said, I'm Gareth from East Coast Drive. And I don't know if you were listening to the show now, but we're going to go through the same sort of stuff and chat about your first appearance in Durban. Obviously, 2014 you weren't here. I was lucky enough to be at Nitro Circus that time around, and it was awesome. But you missed it, and you had a broken leg. Why don't you tell everyone why you missed the first appearance in Durban?
Well, the beauty of Nitro Circus is that every show, depending on the crowd, like the guys will step up, and it was kind of my turn. All the young guys kept stepping up. I'm like, all right, I got to send something. I should have waited for Durban, obviously, or at least South Africa would have been a lot smarter. But it was in Cleveland, Ohio, of all places, and tried a front flip Indian Air, which had never been done before, and it still hadn't been done after that night. So unfortunately, had a compound tib fib and was in surgery when I was supposed to be over here. But the Durban show was the best opening for a Nitro show anywhere in the world, and that was because our buddy Eric Roner base jumped, Gaynor off at the top, and that's something that we've been trying to do at so many stadiums worldwide, but due to insurance reasons, South Africa was the first place to let us do it. It was awesome.
We touched on it a little bit earlier about the late Eric Roner. He passed away a couple of years ago. You guys are back in Durban. And I understand it's a bit of a tribute show for him this time around, considering that he has passed away.
This was Eric Roner's first MBC, which is basically the award of being the best on the night on a Nitro Circus show, which is, honestly, it sounds silly because it's kind of a show, but these guys are super competitive. So to win that, I've won 2 in my whole life, and I've been to almost every Nitro Circus show. These dang kids coming down. But this was a show that he nailed everything. He was on the scooters and the big wheels and the roller skis, and to base jump in and Gaynor and just get the crowd so pumped, and the riders, because when the riders are pumped, the show's so much better. So we have a tribute plan that's going to be a little crazy, but fingers crossed everything goes great, and it's going to be right.
Okay, and then in terms of the Durban event, last time you had people joining you guys for stunts from the crowd, and you've put out a bit of a warning this time around that you might not want to be volunteering to do a stunt.
I would be nervous. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like there's not a lot that scares me, and I think the volunteers on this one, they will be part of the Eric Roner tribute, and they have an option. We got to see who's the right size for what thing. We have our criteria for who we're going to pick. So really durable, smaller, rugby players, lighter rugby players. They make those. I don't know.
No rugby player. Too big.
Yeah, too big.
Just taking a look at Nitro Circus as a whole, you guys have been all around the world. You keep pushing the envelope. How do you go about continuing to make the show better and better, bigger, faster, more dangerous?
Well, a lot is the equipment gets lighter every year. We're working with companies like Kevlar to actually help lighten what the guys are using, because before when people jumped a motorcycle, the horsepower was more, but the actual performance was less, and it was 3 times the weight with 1/3 the suspension travel, which makes all the difference in the world. I mean, we're backflipping further than Evil's ever jumped because of that technology. But also, when I was a kid growing up, I never thought we were going to be flipping and spinning dirt bikes. I flipped and spun on a trampoline because I like to, but I never really learned how to do it correctly. Now there's literally 8-year-old kids that are backflipping dirt bikes, and it's because they see this on TV, on YouTube, on so much stuff that we didn't have access to. And anyone can get to the top of their sport, and you can be found because there's access. If you have a phone, you have access to show the world what you're capable of, and it's made action sports so much more reachable for so many people and all over the world.
Talking about that, a long time ago you were the first person to do a double backflip at the X Games. Now you've got guys doing triple backflips. You set the bar a long time ago, but now you've got a younger, more exciting team in the Nitro Circus?
Without a doubt, and that's what, a lot of people, they're always like, oh, I want to see you ride. I'm like, look, I love riding. It's awesome, and I push myself, and I'm still pushing probably harder than I should with 2 kids and a wife at home, but at the end of the day, it's because I love it. But these kids, man, I call them kids. I mean, they're 20 years old, but they're absolutely incredible. And there's a guy, Harry Bink, doing 2 tricks. He did a world's first at the show 2 days ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's planning on doing that trick again and hoping to add to it. So
A double world first.
so yeah, well, if you can do anytime you can do something that no one else in the world's done, it's an amazing feat. But when you have guys like R. Willie and Harry Bink that are consistently doing stuff that no one's done, like show after show after show, and living to tell about it, it's just unbelievable.
Travis, you've had a hell of a career, and you've done some crazy things. Off the top of your head, what's the worst injury you've had, and what was the scariest thing to do?
Well, for me, the worst injury I've had is just one that keeps me off the motorcycle. You know, you have a bone through the skin, and I'm not thinking, oh man, the bone's sticking through the skin. I'm like, oh man, I missed the next 6 weeks. You know, there's 6 to 8 depending on how bad. But then I think the knees are probably the worst. In that, knees and shoulders, rotator cuff, ACL. You're down. It's not that it hurts that much. It's just, again, you're down for 4 months, and to miss 4 months of touring with your friends and getting to do awesome stuff and travel around the world is, you know, I'm 33. I feel pretty old for these sports, and I don't know how much longer I'll be able to keep riding in the shows, and you know, hopefully till I'm at least 80 or so. But you know, we'll see. But
you are the ringleader on Wednesday night. People can expect to see you doing quite a few things on the bike.
I'll be out there. I'll be doing the best I've ever done. It's just, you know, it's all right. It's mediocre.
Perfect. Thank you, Travis. I'm going to open the floor to you guys to chuck some questions Travis's way if anyone feels so obliged.
Yep.
Who's going to answer us?
Who's going to
Anyone.
answer?
Nicola.
Hey, what, I'm posting a live video. Give me 2 seconds.
She's got an
No
interview
pressure.
question brewing.
Tell us about the South African crowd and their mindset and knowledge of action sports.
I think the coolest part about the South African crowd is, like, usually when we go places, you know, especially we go in the States and we're like, we want volunteers, and it goes silent, which is probably smarter, but it's understandable. But we come here, and the second Tommy walks out there, and it's amazing how knowledgeable they are and how many people. Like, I was at the airport, I got a haircut this morning, so we had a little bit of time. And she's like, "Oh, I saw you on Fantasy Factor. I love Nitro Circus." I'm like, "That's cool." Like the TV shows that we had in the States, there's a lot of countries that we go to that didn't have MTV or didn't have it on cable. So to come here when guys like Street Bike Tommy and myself, and they know the whole background, and you know, a lot of the guys that came to the show had been here, like at my age and older, had known that I'd raced Grant Langston and been over riding, you know, here when I was 12, and it's really cool to see that people really do like dirt bikes. They like BMX. There's a pretty good scooter following for R. Willie. It's you know, it's an awesome culture for this, which is almost surprising because you don't see a lot of it on TV. From what I've seen, just watching the sports and everything, it seems like, you know, football or rugby, but the actual crowd knows everything. It's awesome.
There is a big motocross following in KZN. In terms of the rest of the tour and what you guys have got coming up, what's the next stop, and how much longer of the season do you guys have left?
So this was these 3 events are real big ones. We have one more event in Saudi Arabia, which will be interesting. Just first time for us going there. But South Africa, we wanted to make sure we had a little bit of time before for the guys to get prepared, try the big ramps, make sure everyone's as healthy as possible. Because last year we came straight off the U.S. tour, which, you know, the shows were still good, but we had a lot of guys that were needing surgery and other stuff. Not that our shows are dangerous, but, you know, me included. So we really planned it out this time to make sure that we had the best of the best doing the biggest stuff possible, and then we'll go home right after the Saudi show, and I've got a month where we'll be filming for Action Figures, which is a Nitro Circus, basically like an old school DVD, and we just go and we weld ramps and we work on landings. We had a whole new airbag system for the motorcycle side, so hopefully we're so jealous of the BMX side. Yeah, they can get injured over there, like had a dislocated shoulder and every now and then someone knocks their head, but for the most part they can crash.
Yeah.
The moto side we can't crash yet, so we're working on a landing that's still gonna suck if you crash, but
You're not going to die.
yeah, right now, like if you crash on the moto side, like it's look at the hand, let's stretch your him out. So we'll try to avoid that. Sorry, I'm not doing good with this.
You're speaking the truth. That's how you're speaking.
Ryan?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, Nitro Circus is an Australian company, right?
So Nitro Circus was a U.S. company, started basically in Annapolis, and our producer was in Utah. And then the live show started with a company that was out of Australia.
So that's the Australian.
So, and then they moved to the U.S.
Right, a two-part question. How many shows in total of this type of show would you do a year? And I know you're very into motorsports, rallying, NASCAR, and other stuff. Which do you prefer, and how much of that do you do?
So the first year we did 13 shows, and we were like, oh, how are we going to survive? Like, this is going to be crazy. And then it got moved to like 22 shows, and then 30 shows, and this year we're close to 70 shows. But the reason we can do that is because when we're traveling the world, we found so many awesome local talent. So like Nick DeWitt, I mean, amazing, South African rider. Some places you go, obviously there's not a lot of guys you can pick up that they can maybe ride by themselves, but to trust your life with them in 3 wide, where everyone's bouncing off each other doing the biggest tricks ever, it's a scary thing, even if you're a top rider. But it's allowed us in every country we go to, we've been picking up more and more guys, and there's a couple that we can pick up 2 or 3 guys in a country that we may have heard of but never really known about, and we find those personalities, those guys that, like R. Willie, who's not only a phenomenal athlete, but he's the first guy signing autographs. He's there until the security throws the last person out of the stands. He's filming his own videos. He's got his own YouTube series. He's like, these guys that are just really interactive, and they understand that action sports, as much as us as athletes think it's contest and everything just matters how well you're doing your tricks, the guys on the tour are the guys that are going out there and really building up action sports for the future, and understand that, hey, we're not as big as football. We're not as big as these other sports, and you know what? We want to be reachable. We want every kid that wants to come out. If they're super pumped, our really will give them a scooter. And that's something you're not going to get. Maybe you get a baseball at a baseball game, but it's pretty crowded.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
You're going to start now, Nicola?
Oh, okay. Some questions from our members. Lise wants to know, when will we be seeing Eddie in Bristol in the shows?
I try to give them a golf club, but they keep going to the dirt bike. I don't know. So that's what's interesting. Everyone says, what are your daughters going to do when they grow up? I said, well, whatever they want. Obviously, we have the means to really help them out in the motorsport. That was your second part to your question. And that's, whatever you wake up that morning, you have the most passion for. For me, it's competition and it's friendship, and that's a hard balance because you get to travel around the world with your best friends in action sports. But I still like to. The racing aspect is a lot of fun, and as I get older, the car racing is where I can continue to do without knees and ankles that work so well. So.
And which form of car racing do you prefer?
I'm best at. Yeah.
Don't mention the wrong word. Now. It's all about rally, right?
Yeah, I actually won the North American Rally Championship this year. It was the first championship I've won since 2010. So I had a little bit of a losing streak there. But what I like about rally is that you can take risk. You're not going to get everything perfect. You're going to be a little too sideways. You're going to come in a little too fast. You're going to have a couple moments, or you might have a flat tire or something like that. It's making the best of the worst situation, being able to assess the risk and take as much risk you need to win. NASCAR, and actually even more so if you go into open wheel racing like Formula One, I'm just not meticulous enough to be precise every single lap. I like to take chances, and in NASCAR, the more chances I took, the slower I'd go. I qualify well. You throw in one banger lap, and then 5 laps in, everyone else's tires are still good, and you burnt them off the car. It's full like Cold Trickle on Days of Thunder, so not really my game, right? But yeah, so hopefully my girls will enjoy these sports, because I love to ride motorcycles and drive cars with my daughters and my wife. I can't skateboard at all, but I can at least bicycle around the skate parks. And she goes. So that's fun as a family, but at the same time, as a parent, it's always tough to see your kids take risk. And in these sports that stuff does happen, I wouldn't give up a second of it, but I have so much more appreciation for my parents for allowing me to chase my dreams. And I feel like if they have half the passion for whatever they do as anyone in Nitro Circus, the mom does for skating as I do for motorcycles, then I've succeeded as a parent. And if it is action sports, then I'll definitely support it.
That's awesome. And then, how many heart attacks have you given your mother?
She blames me for all her gray hair, for sure. Every time, she's good generally in Nitro Circus stuff, because she knows, hey, look, if it's super windy or if there's something wrong, like I don't need to do it. There's always someone that's doing something bigger. One guy steps up, and that's usually not me when it's like a gnarly situation. Sometimes it is, but I don't tell her that. So, but when you go to like an X Games or an X Fighters or World Games, that night you could have the flu, you could not be feeling on your game, you could have everything wrong, you could have wind, it could be raining, whatever. She knows that I'm too silly to just call it, or lay up.
Do you want to ask questions? Okay, I've got one question. Actually,
Oh, it's two
what?
questions. Maybe two questions.
No, for you one question. Okay, so I have to read it, otherwise I'm going to stumble over my words. You obviously have a natural talent for what you do, and I would like to know how often, if ever, do you get somebody else to do your risk calculations before you do a trick? Or do you just go with your gut?
Well, what's interesting is you can do it if you take out the suspension, the compression, the rebound, and the rider's leg compression rebound for like distance jumps. If it's flat enough or long enough, like with a car jump, you can generally get within 10 feet or so of where you're going to land with mathematics. So we always do put in all the computer calculations for those types of jumps, and then still like play a little bit by ear. I found the computer in your head works a little better than most of the things that people can do. I don't know why, but at the end of the day, we had a show on MTV that the guys from Jackass helped us produce and sell the show, and they always came up with these great ideas. Knoxville was like, "Yeah, it's a win-win. We're gonna get a bull." And I was like, "Okay, if the bull doesn't hit us, we don't show it. If it does hit us, we get hit with a bull." Yeah, win-win. And I'm like, I don't understand your calculations at all. So we had a rule that got implemented right away that was basically, if you come up with a stunt or an idea, you have to at least be willing to try it first. So that takes a lot of people out of what we do. But I will take, I'll take information and knowledge from anyone in the Nitro Circus. And usually when I come up with an idea that I'm not sure if it's going to work, you start spitballing, and everyone will come up. But the problem is, a lot of people will start throwing in, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And then you start thinking about that, and you're like, well, this is a horrible idea. So if it's already built, a lot of times they just don't ask, because then it's all my fault if something happens.
How do you choose then who does the stunt the first time if it's really, really outrageous?
If it's really outrageous, then it's the person's idea that came up with it.
Tell a good example is the triple backflip that you conceived and tried.
So everyone's like, why did Josh Sheehan get an opportunity to do the triple backflip? I'm like, well, it's really easy. He's the only one in the world that A, had the ability, and B, was willing to even hit the ramp. I brought Tom Paget, who was the world champion at the time. He hit the ramp one time to an airbag and left. He said he was going to the hotel. He just booked his flight out. So, I mean, and he didn't come back. And that just shows you, like, he's just thought in his head, he's like, yeah, made to an airbag, just a straight jump, that's crazy. Like, there's no way. Like, this is just ridiculous. So I tried for 3 years. And I finally reached out and brought in a couple of my friends. Most of them didn't hit the ramp. 2 other guys hit the ramp, one left that night. And Josh Sheehan came back, and he kept coming back over the next 2 years. And when basically everyone at Nitro, everyone at Red Bull, everyone at all of our sponsors said, look, this isn't going to work. We've spent close to $300,000 in ramps. We've done $200,000 in landings, and we've got nothing out of it. Like this, you guys are chasing the pipe dream. And Josh Sheehan, on his own dime, would fly to my house, and he'd help weld the ramps. James Foster for the quadruple backflip. Foster ended up breaking 3 ribs, changed the ramp, and then Jed Milden on the ramp that Foster welded was able to land the quadruple backflip. So it's Foster and I were kind of the guys that put a lot of the work into designing it. But at the end of the day, those guys were able to figure out that final little bit and had the guts and the ability to land it.
Not to draw it out, how many attempts did you make at the triple backflip?
I got to wheels 1 time over 4 years.
But in 4 years, how many times did you?
Oh God,
thousands.
Thousands, yes, maybe, yes, tens of thousands possibly. But so you look at it, but a lot of just bailouts. So, but the really interesting part was when after we got word Josh Sheehan was landing to a flat bag, he's like, all right, now we need to have a landing bag. So we actually created a landing bag that now basically all the Olympic teams from snowboarding and everything that's now with the BMX coming in, they've all come to Nitro Circus and all these other sponsors and riders, and it really put us on the map, even though, yeah, it was $750,000 before anything actually happened. So much progression was made on ramp technology, and we started with a 15-foot tall ramp. He ended up with a 44-foot tall takeoff ramp. The landing was 60 foot tall. I mean, it's absolutely, it's ludicrous, it's crazy. But that's what we had to do, because the higher you went, exponentially it would slow down the rotation. So even though we could get 2 1/4 off the small ramp, that extra 3/4 of spin just took 100 feet. Yeah, so works out.
Any last question?
Yes. Okay. I've got one.
Sorry, I talk a lot. I apologize.
What was your first stunt and at what age? And was it intentional?
The flying W. It's everyone's favorite first stunt. No. At the end of the day, like when you jump for the first time, you get maybe one wheel off, and you think possibly both wheels came off when you're 4 years old. It's like the biggest thing ever. And now I'll jump 250 feet and be thinking, what's for lunch? So it's, yeah, I mean, at times. So everything is perception and everything is skill based, and it's just as risky for someone that has never done a backflip to do a backflip that is for Josh Sheehan to do a triple backflip, even though Josh is 100 feet in the air and they're 20 feet in the air. It's skill level, so it just evolves. So my first stunt was probably just jumping a dirt bike, and probably by the end of that day, I think I was taking a foot off or both feet off or a hand off. My mom was yelling at me. Standard story of my life.
Yeah, awesome.
All right.
Guys?
Perfect. Travis?
Thanks for your time. Really
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much. Everyone else, thank you
Thank you so
guys
much.
for coming, and enjoy the show.
Yeah.